Welcome to another video. Today I want to talk a bit about how you can improve in Final Fantasy XIV, especially when looking at pulling your own weight and how to be great at your job. Which shall not imply that I'm good at any of the jobs available, but at least when looking back at my battle performance in Stormblood, things have changed drastically, and mostly for the better, so let me try to talk a bit about my personal experiences and grant you some tips that may help you as well. First of all, and the most crucial thing about improving your performance is reading tooltips. Each and every job's combat system is mostly constructed around pushing out your biggest attacks during cooldown phases of yourself or others, and use certain abilities to accumulate energy of other resources to open up these big damage opportunities. And to find a solid priority, the easiest but most effective method is to look at potency differences. For example, on the Red Mage you can clearly see from the potencies alone which spells need to be cast with your dual cast ability and which spells are being used to proc dual cast from the fast casting time. While on melee jobs and tanks you basically follow certain combo patterns, where the first and weakest attack will enable the next stronger one that will unlock the final attack of the combo. On the Dragoon this is pushed even further with additional combo actions afterwards. Above that, like I said, most jobs use certain resources or gauge mechanics where gauge points are being generated by certain attacks, and other stronger attacks will be using those gauge points that are mostly the stronger option, which should basically be aligned with bursting windows, which are all effects that increase your damage output or that of other party members over a limited period of time. And this is where you want to have those big attacks ready, while avoiding to use the low potency skills. But yes, the perfect order and rotation is often not very clear, so you should check out Salted Final Fantasy XIV or The Balance for recent optimal rotations, or look up WeskAlber's or my job guides to get used to a job's battle system in general. Nonetheless, looking up your tooltips and understanding relations between skill A and B is not that hard, and potencies can often be a very good indicator for you to learn the basics by yourself. Okay, and after all these skills and job theories are learned, what about actually pressing skills? Yes, this may be another section where you can improve your performance, first of all by putting all of your skills to certain hotkeys and binding them to buttons on your keyboard or solid places on your gamepad configuration. I know, many newcomers may not believe me, but clicking skills with your mouse may be okay for doing quests or being part of any not so active combat situation. But whenever you have movement or get to the point of the more complex rotations that your job is offering, having mapped or bound skills to hotkeys and keybinds is essential. And if you struggle in getting your up to 30 skills onto your keyboard, check out my recent hotkey and hotbar video about that topic. And most of all, consider using an MMO mouse, which can be bought for $30 already. In this section I quickly want to mention the most crucial thing in Final Fantasy XIV again: global cooldown abilities and off-global cooldown abilities, the first being any weapon skill or spell that will trigger the basic global cooldown of 2.5 seconds that is slightly affected by skill or spell speed, while the off-global cooldown ability or OGCD can be used in between and during that 2.5 recast timer. Our goal in Final Fantasy is to put as many OGCDs in between global cooldowns or GCDs as possible, at least when looking at the right timing and inside of cooldown phases. And while doing so, always stick to the ABC always be casting guideline, that simply refers to not letting your weapon skill recast timer be unused, which can happen by using OGCDs too late or more than 2, which could delay the usage of the next weapon skill or cast just by not doing anything at all. That maybe is the worst thing you can do except dying. The trick that most players use is to smash the button of the next weapon skill or spell you want to use repeatedly to guarantee that the game's engine will realize the input at the earliest possible time and not getting bamboozled with other things. And why don't we just push the button exactly at the time the recast timer has run off? Simply due to server ticks. Server ticks line up signals from the player with the actual game server. And sometimes your button input may not be recognized at the same pace that the server is refreshing, which can lead to your input not being registered at the time you would need it to activate the next skill. Smashing the button of the skill you want to use next will definitely help to avoid that situation, and in 99% of cases the server will let your input through at the exact time when your recast timer has finished. And yes, this sounds like finicky fine-tuning and unnecessary wear and tear of your hardware and your finger, but over a fight of 6 to 10 minutes this can truly make a difference, you may notice. So always be casting, always be smashing your buttons while trying to use the skills in the proper order. And after that is secured, how can you actually see if your performance did increase or what performance you're actually talking about? First, you could download the Advanced Combat Tracker, which is the best tool for Final Fantasy XIV to track your DPS and the ones of your party members. But while strictly being against the TOS, Square Enix doesn't ban you for using the advanced combat tracker, unless when it's used to harm other players by calling them out or harassing them for low DPS numbers or the like. So if you use it, just make sure it's for your own purpose only, or when talking about DPS numbers, only stick to friends and other players you trust. And I know, some players may not like the advanced combat tracker, and I have good news to share with you, because there's actually a tool in-game with which you can compare results and track your performance, namely fighting dummies. Right before the entrance to Yulmore, there's an NPC that you can visit to simulate all sorts of different boss encounters. The bosses are represented by training dummies, and you will try to reduce their HP to 0 depending on the fight you're participating in and the job you have chosen before the time runs out. But don't worry, the dummies won't hit back, so whenever you're going to hit up Eden 9 Savage for example, and you're able to beat that dummy in the required time, you're absolutely good to go, and if you're able to reduce the required time by optimizing your rotation or its execution, at least on paper and without counting in boss mechanics, you're well prepared to step into the real encounter. Generally speaking, and talking about the most important aspect of improving, that actually counts for all things in life: practice. You won't believe how many times I was stuck with certain rotations of jobs that I usually don't play that often, and even after 10 or 20 tries, I didn't feel comfortable. Then after 30 or more tries, something changed, and I came to the realization of getting used to the order and hierarchy of skills, and how to arrange them according to my hotkey setup to reach the direction of the recommendation for optimal rotations. And of course, the same applies to bosses and combining your job's rotation with boss mechanics. Whenever I do content with my summoner, even new mechanics are adapted to very easily and quickly due to the fact that I can play whatever my summoner's rotation may be, blindly. And the kinda same goes for my Dark Knight.
But I'm really not having a clue if I'm actually hitting targets or anything like that. I would just spam my AoE here and hope that I can hit something.
So before ever running into anxiety or disbelief in your own excellence, just try to think about the fact that we all started somewhere and performed like newcomers. Don't put up high expectations on yourself when other players have played the double amount of time. Just keep on practicing and all things will become your second nature, self-actingly. So check out job guides found on this or WeskAlber's channel, or written guides on sorted Final Fantasy XIV while reading the tooltips from the job you're playing. Then try to bind skills and spells to a solid key binding and hotkey setup while smashing all the required buttons like a madman. After that is done, head to the training dummies in Calusia or download the advanced combat tracker with the help of my guide found in the description, or by yourself, and get ready for all the endgame content that is waiting for you. Oh, and don't worry about content until level 80 except for doing Savage or Ultimate raids. Even Asmongold can beat Odin without actually using his job gauge.
Just do it!
So you will be fine for the general playthrough, and you can use the time to fall in love with the job you play, which is key to a solid performance. So I hope you can finish this video with a spark of inspiration, and would love to see you in some more videos on my channel, featuring nearly all content this game has to offer. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.